Yeah, picky eaters can be tough, but with the right strategies, we can turn our struggles into opportunities for growth. So, how do you know if your child is a picky eater? So, this is 10 quick questions that I got from um one of the blogs of um an American teacher. So she said that if you're seeing, I mean, if you're having moments where you're force feeding your child, I mean, you can read through the 10 questions, um, where your child would have some types of food that they won't eat. For example, if it's too dry, they won't touch it. If it's too mushy, like some fruits like strawberries or some forms of meat. I mean, the way meats are cooked, like jerky. I mean, those kinds of textures. If you can see the pattern that your child is rejecting it, if your child will only eat if they're watching videos, if your child is still eating most forms of baby foods at 16 to 18 months old when they're supposed to be weaning off already from baby food. And after 12 months, if you notice, your child is still having a hard time making the switch from milk to semi-solid foods, this might mean that they are beginning to become picky eaters. So it's our job as parents and caregivers to be more attentive to how our children react to being weaned off from milk, because this is also will give us a sign of how they will be reacting to certain types of food when you are starting to introduce them to different kinds of textures, different kinds of temperatures, different kinds of flavors, different kinds of cultures, even cuisines. So let's talk about the causes um of be having children grow up to be picky eaters. So one would be early feeding. So what does early feeding mean? It means it's not yet their meal time and yet you're giving them snacks. So in other words, snacking. If you're constantly giving your child a lot of snacks, for sure, when it's mealtime already, when it's their time to eat nutritional, healthy food that will give them a balanced diet, they won't be hungry. And of course, if they're not hungry, they won't want to eat. So if they know that there is an abundance of snacks before mealtime and you say yes to it all the time, well, of course, your child will say no to the meal because they prefer snacks more or they're still full. They don't feel hunger. They're not trained to know what is hunger because they're always fed. So that is one of the causes. Another cause would be um, late introduction of foods. So I know some parents are more cautious now when introducing certain types of food because for one, well, scared that their child might be allergic to certain types of food. So when we are starting to introduce different kinds of food, such as foods that have cow's milk or egg, finned fish, peanuts, sesame, shellfish, soy, certain types of tree nuts, and wheat. Parents might be more, let's say they might try to avoid these foods at the beginning. And, this is one of the mistakes that parents and caregivers do. If you ultimately avoid allergens, you might actually be training your child or the child to um not savor or not taste, not feel these different kinds of textures in their mouth. Now, how do you um introduce allergens? Um, I mean, at least foods with allergens to a young toddler or to a young child. Of course, you don't give it in big amounts. If you're scared, if you're cautious that it is an allergen or it might be an allergen to your child, of course, you give it in very, very little amounts. And when you see very small um very small symptoms like having redness around the mouth, then of course you stop. But ultimately, you have to let your child try it, because if you yourself as a caregiver is very apprehensive in letting your child try, then they will also not may not be used to trying these certain types of food. And there is no actually strong evidence. For example, if your older sibling has an allergen to this specific food, there is no strong evidence that your younger child would have the same kind of allergy. And actually, specialists now recommend that siblings of children with food allergies can actually be introduced to these common food allergens at home without any pre-screening by an allergist, if they are not at higher risk due to severe or any other pre-existing food allergy. So that means if, just as I said a while ago, you introduce it in very, very little amounts. And if you don't see the first few symptoms of having redness in the mouth, them coughing, them having a runny nose, the usual symptoms, when you give them small, small amounts, smaller than a teaspoon, you just let them taste. Then you may let them consume it in small amounts until you are very sure that there is no other reaction from it. And studies also suggest that delaying the introduction of food allergens may actually put the younger child or the younger sibling at an increased risk of having a food allergy. Why? Because they haven't had the exposure to this allergen. So they might develop, because the risk of delayed introduction is actually higher than the risk posed by family history. So, nevertheless, if you're anxious about, your child inheriting a family history, you might as well go request a medically supervised allergen test, so that you are very sure. Aside from that, there are foods that may not be allergens, but they would form a harmless rash around the child's mouth. Why? Because these are acidic foods, and our children have very sensitive skin. So when they do eat it, of course their skin is going to tingle a little bit. So such as grapefruit, kiwi, these are very sour foods. So just do take note of that. So it's not a cause for concern or a cause for you to introduce certain foods later to your child, because they will be able to adapt, just so if you give them the right amount. So what other causes are there, aside from parents being scared about allergens? Of course, there's also parents being selective about the certain kind of food that they give to their children. So of course, as an adult, as a person yourself, you also have preferences with the food that you intake. So since you're the person preparing the meal for your family, or you're the person in charge creating a dish for the people in the household, of course you also think of what you want to eat. Now, if you just think of foods that you like, of course your child will not be exposed to the foods that you don't like. So when you as an adult, right, your taste buds like change. So now you might not like a certain type of dish. But then if you try it 2 years later, you're gonna say, oh, it actually doesn't taste that bad at all. I actually kind of like it. Um, so for you, it's going to be quite easy to understand. I mean, because you have that level of reflectiveness already. But for children um, who don't have this kind of self-reflectiveness, if they don't have exposure to a certain type of food or a certain type of cuisine, if they haven't tasted a wide range of spices, a wide range of texture in food, crispy, chewy, juicy, creamy. Um, they might be repelled by other ways where they may encounter this certain ingredient. So let's say, for example, potato. Potato is a very well-known vegetable. So I mean, it's a root crop. Some people might only like it mashed. But actually, if you don't like mashed, there are other ways where you can introduce potato. Or if your child doesn't like mashed potato, you might as well try introducing it as something else, so that even if, I mean, if you're scared that your child is not getting the nutritional value of potato, of course you translate it into a different um you cook it in a different type of way, so that you can, try to learn more about your child's preferences as well. So if you don't like mashed potato, there's like fried potato, french fries. There's also there's potato salad, there's potato pancakes, there's what's this, baked potato, there's potato soup. So if your child is quite picky about their food, um let me just remind you that you are the adult of the house. So you only, I mean, your child does get to pick what they eat on the table, but you also, as a parent, you decide what to give them on the table. So it's not the other way around. While we respect our child's decisions, if they want to eat this type of food, they must also learn to respect the food that is presented upon to them. So it's also a way of working with your child, and working with them in such a way that is still respectful, um without making it a very scary experience for them. And that is another cause for picky eaters. If they have a pressure, if they're pressured to eat, um if they're pressured to eat during meal times, of course they will not want to eat. If you have an unpleasant experience with meal times, you also would, I mean, in any kind of activity, if you have an unpleasant experience with it, of course you will not want to try new foods. I mean, if you're being force fed, or if you have punishment if you don't eat. So what are some do's and don'ts? So one of the do's is, number one is to set a routine. So this is always the number one when you are raising a little child, when you have a toddler, when you're raising pre-nursery, when you're raising playgroup, is to have a routine. And what is an ideal routine for a child? So when it comes to eating, children should eat ideally 3 times a day, but snacks only come twice, once in the morning and once in the afternoon. So you get to choose when to implement this snack time for them. Why is it important that there is a time for snack time? It's so that they know when food will be given. And if they don't consume it at this point in time, they know that within the next 3 hours, there will be another set of food. So, for example, they did not prefer the morning snack. A morning snack can be as simple such as an apple. If they don't like the apple, okay, fine. There's lunch in 3 hours. So you can set your morning snack at 9:30, and then you can set lunch at around 11 to 12. So if they don't eat their morning snack at 9, you can say, okay, we'll keep it, and you can have your lunch at 12. So it's also your child's way of learning how to measure their hunger. And also you respecting your child's feeling and knowing themselves. We have to teach our children how they can distinguish if they are hungry or if they just want something to do. Because some children also, they feel, I mean, this is a recreational thing for them, because some parents also make food, I mean, of course, in in their best intentions, they want to make food, I mean meal times, as happy as possible. So they make this one mistake I feel for parents who are feeding their infants. They make those sounds, for example, woo, when they're feeding their child. So when their child is still a baby and they get used to all this playtime when eating, as they get older, you have to entertain them a little bit more because you've trained them already that during meal times, mommy, daddy, or caregiver will be entertaining them for them to eat. So it's like bribing them as well. So it shouldn't be part of your routine so that it doesn't get um carried over to when they start growing up and when they start to understand certain types of routine. So routine can be like that. And also, you should set a certain time for eating. Um, Eating shouldn't take place in an hour or two. I've heard a lot of feedback my from my parents. I mean, from my children, my students' parents, about their children eating at home for 1 2 hours plus because their child is distracted or doing other things, or they just don't chew, they don't drink a lot of water, and there's a lot of negotiations during mealtime. Now you can avoid this by setting a time, and if they don't eat much, that just means they're not hungry. And you can try again because you have a routine. You know that in 3 hours, you will have another snack or another meal for your child. So that's how important, or that's why having timed, routinely meal times for your child is important. Um, so another number two is to be a good example, and to have that is to have a communal meal. So at school you eat together, at home you have family meal time. So it may not be all three meal times. Maybe your meal time is breakfast because everyone gets to prepare at the same time in the morning. Or maybe it can be at dinner time where everyone can, talk about their whole day. So you can start this as early as 1 or 2 years old, just to build that habit, just so your child knows that they can also see you, they can see your eating habits as well. So for if you're going to implement no snacking, of course, you also as an adult, I mean, you have to model that to your child. I mean, I'm not saying you're not going to be snacking at all, but I mean, you are already an adult yourself. But in front of your child, you have to model that you only snack at certain periods of time. You only eat at certain periods of time, so that they also know that, oh, that's really the way. Breakfast comes early in the morning. There's a morning tea break halfway through, and then there's lunch. They know that mom, dad, and teacher is doing the same routine. So since you have this communal eating time, right, you should allow your child to feed themselves. This is very important. I see a lot of parents, especially in restaurants, when the food comes in, they immediately cut everything. They immediately, spoon feed their children, even if they're already 4 or 5. I mean, allow your children to feed themselves so that you can also eat. I mean, I know it's part of a parent to be caring, to want your child to eat a lot so that they grow healthy, they grow stronger, they have a lot of nutrients, but also show your child that this is our habit, to be respectful when it is eating time, that we will be respecting ourselves by feeding ourselves first. You feed yourself, I feed myself. Now, towards the other half of your mealtime, that's when you can try feeding them when they're already engaged in conversation with you, when they're already being too messy, because some children prefer to eat with their hands, and that is completely fine. If they don't know how to use utensils yet, that's okay. They don't know how to use chopsticks, they don't know how to use their fingers to ball up rice, something like that. So you model how to behave by eating yourself by yourself in front of your children as they also feed themselves. Now, if your child refuses to eat, you may let them sit until everyone is finished eating, um, and just finish the whole dinner time, because it's not, if they don't want to eat, okay, don't eat. That's very lenient. Of course, when it's eating time. So if it's meal time, it's a communal time. We get to bond together. You don't want to eat, it's okay, but you have to stay there and bond with the family, bond with your siblings, bond with mom, bond with dad. So even if you don't want to eat, it is meal time now. There's no other activities right now. The TV is off, the phones are put away, the iPad is turned off. There's no other activity for you. The toys are already put away. So now is the time for meal time. So you don't want to eat, it's okay, but it's meal time. It's time to sit at the table. So the mealtime environment should always be considered when feeding a child. So there should be conversation, your eating space should be clean, and yeah, we should avoid watching television. Number three, yeah, let's avoid watching television. Um I mean, I grew up in a household wherein when it's dinner time, the TV would be turned on because my father would be watching the news. And so that was part of our routine. And so it has been imbibed to me that every time I'm eating now, I'm watching the news. So see, even as an adult, during dinner time, I would feel a bit restless if there is no screen in front of me. I mean, I mean, it's also meaningful screen time for me lah, now that I'm an adult. But for children to be as restless as us, I mean, it's not normal, because they should be using this routine to build their focus and try to um build their habit. So we do that by limiting screen time ourselves as well. So since you are there and they see you, of course it will be unfair if they don't have their iPads and you have your phone. I mean, they may not vocalize or verbalize it, but they would feel that it's kind of unfair, and you should feel unfair too. I mean, have some integrity as an adult. If your child has limited screen time during meal times, let's also limit our screen time in front of them. Number four, uh trust your child when they say they are full. So as I said a while ago, as a parent, your responsibility is feeding your child. So you control where, when, and what kind of food is provided to them. But your child has their responsibility. Their responsibility is to decide or to feel for themselves whether how much they can eat. So if your child says stop, you believe them that it stop, so that they also um their boundaries are also respected, and they know that when they say I'm done, my mom or my dad, my auntie, my uncle will take it away already. So it's not joke time. When they say they're done, they're done. So it's not um it's not part of a negotiation. Mealtime is not part of negotiation. If it's there for you to eat, you eat. If you're finished, okay, pack away, clean your table, put the utensils in the sink. If they're a little bit older, you can teach them to put their own dishes in the sink. You can teach them how to throw their leftovers, or whatever you do with the leftovers. Do you feed it to a pet? Do you put it in a recycling bin? Do you have a worm bin? You can teach also that to your child. So when they already a bit older, you can extend the routine to things such as that. Okay, so these are some of the things that we should avoid. Number one is force feeding. So some parents might feel that if their child is not eating, they're going to not get the vitamins and minerals that they need. Or force feeding could also be forcing your child to eat the way you want to eat. Because everyone has different quirks about eating. So you might want to eat your sandwich as a square, but your child might want to eat it as a triangle without crusts. Um, so your child, if you give them a square sandwich, they will not eat it. But if you cut it into a triangle, they will eat it. So let's, respect our child's preferences as well, so that they learn the value of respect. They understand the value of boundaries, and they get to trust you as a parent, as their caregiver, that you also welcome their preferences, so that they will be more trusting to you and more obedient to you as well, because they know that they are in safe hands. um, for example, another example would be a child not wanting to eat small pieces of broccoli and would only want the stems. I mean, they don't want the bristles on top and would only be eating the stems. Or it could be the other way around. They would eat all of the bristles on top and then leave the stems. It's okay. At least your child ate broccoli, you know? Or if they prefer the apples to be peeled. I mean, if you're only introducing the food for the first year, maybe just let them be first, because it's more more I mean, it welcomes them to trying the food if you respect their preferences. But as they start to get older, you can also explain to them that, for example, you can give them some sort of scientific explanation where they will be bamboozled. When they are a bit older, you can tell them that actually our taste buds, they grow up too. That means what they tasted before, they may not taste it the same way now. And later I will teach you how to introduce or reintroduce a certain kind of food that your child has been repelled by before. But let's talk about the other things to avoid. Random snacking or juice. Now it's very common for brands to package their juices to say that there's no artificial flavors, there's no artificial sugars, not a lot of calories, made from natural juices. So let's not 100% trust how brands package their food for children, because this is a marketing ploy for everyone. I mean, let's try to avoid giving our children a lot of artificial juice, may it be from boxed juices, bottled juices, um, and even natural juices. If consumed in excessive amounts, it may be too much sugar for them as well, because and this will also affect their appetite. So let's limit our child to having 4 ounces of juice um, a day. And maybe if they want to have certain flavor to their food, let's apply it to the snacks that they want. So if they want something sweet, maybe you can have some fruits, you can introduce some jam, you can introduce different kinds of nuts, you know other things to avoid is bad experiences or bribery. So bad experiences such as threatening is not limited to being angry when they are not eating a certain type of food. Another thing to avoid also is to giving dessert as a reward. So, because if a child is forced to eat an entire meal with the condition of having a dessert at the end, the child may finish the whole meal, and even if they're full, they still want to eat the dessert. It's very yummy. They will still eat it. So you are not teaching your child how to know when to stop eating, how to know when they are full and when they still have space. So what will be the consequence of that? They might vomit when they are playing. They might develop certain eating disorders because they don't know when they are full. So if your child refuses to eat, withholding dessert, it's not the answer, because the child will learn to value the dessert more than the nutritious foods that they are eating first, which can alter their eating patterns for life. So if your child rushes through the meal to get the dessert, you try offering the dessert with the meal, so it's going to be there with the meal. It's not a prize right after, because when children are picky eaters, sometimes it's a response to controlling or picky parents, or to bribery such as this. And there will be a battle over food where they can negotiate, and this is something um that can lead to resistance, defiance, and we don't really want that when it is mealtime. As I want to remind y'all, you are the adult, you give the food, and the child just needs to eat and say when they are finished. It's not the child's decision what to eat and when to eat it, because you are the adult. The child's responsibility is to start learning the eating habits, start learning to know when they are full, start learning how to try different textures, different flavors. And sometimes your child, when you do this kind of way in teaching them how to eat, they may eat very little or nothing at all. But trust that you have um, the routine that we set just a while ago, and they will be getting that nutrition that they need later on that day or later on that week. Lastly, let's avoid being a short order cook by asking your child, do you like it? Do you like what I cooked for you? Do you like what you're eating right now? If your child, let's stop asking them if they like it or not, because they should be eating nutritious food. And it's not because they like it, it's because they're just exploring the textures, they're learning it. So if your child doesn't like or doesn't seem to be eating the foods that you have prepared for them, it's okay. Don't avoid that urge to prepare something else, because they will have that habit of saying no because they know that you are prepared to have another meal. If there is a meal in front of them, that's the only meal that they will have. If they're not ready to eat it now, you can serve it again later for afternoon tea break. For example, lunch. They don't like the lunch. You can serve it for afternoon. You can say, this is the only food that we have now. You didn't like it a while ago, you can try it again now. Maybe you didn't like it hot. Now it's a little bit warmer. Now that it's warm, you don't like it? Okay, I will heat it up for you. If you don't like it hot, do you want it a little bit colder? We can still wait a little bit more. You have to be firm as well. If you know that your child didn't eat breakfast, didn't eat morning tea break, and then somewhere they didn't eat lunch, then you have to be firm already, because you have to um gauge it out also, when to be firm with your child. And anyway, when children are hungry, they're more likely to eat what is offered to them. So actually, aside from children just being humans learning what they like and what they don't like, there's actually a correlation to picky eating and children with speech issues. So, feeding issues and speech delays go hand in hand and can begin to chip away at life skills. So, it's important to know or to address these problems early on. So if you feel that your child's picky eating may be caused by something else and it's not just preference, let's try let's consider talking to their other caregivers to compare your experiences with feeding this certain child. Because picky eating isn't, I mean, while it isn't a disease or condition on its own, it can actually be a sign of some underlying issues with a child's body. So if your child is unable to swallow, or they have difficulty chewing, or maybe their tummy is always hurting, um, they might not be digesting food the way that they're supposed to digest it. So you have to take note of these things as well. So it might not just be preference. Let's move on. So I wanna teach you how to introduce new foods. Let's start with a blueberry. For example, it's a blueberry. Blueberries are very tricky because they're not very uniform. In a batch of blueberries that you buy from the grocery, there could be one that is firm. There could be one that is soggy. There could be one that is very juicy. There could be one that's very dry. So it's not, let's just say it's not a very trustworthy fruit, because whatever from the bunch, sometimes it's really different, and it can be a very good surprise for most of us, because hey, that's so wonderful, you can explore. That blueberry was so juicy. Oh, the blueberry was a little bit crispy or a little bit crunchy. There really is a lot of different kinds of blueberries in one batch. Now this makes it a very vulnerable fruit for children who are very picky, because they can't trust it. A sandwich they can trust. The first bite will be the same as the last bite. It's the same. It's jam and cheese. It's peanut butter and jelly. It will always be peanut butter and jelly. It will always be toasty. It will always be sweet. It will always be a little bit salty. The texture is the same with every bite, but with certain foods such as fruits, especially the blueberry, there will be different sensorial issues that they may encounter. So the first thing that you will do when you are introducing a new food is to sit with your child and to explore the sensory aspects of the food without eating it yet. So you can compare it to whatever they can relate to. So my example is, oh, this is as small as marbles. Actually, this is called blueberries. It's circle. And then you can even try putting it over your iris. You can say, is it as big as my eyes? Do you think it's as big as your eyes? You can put it to your cheek. I'm going to put it to my cheek. It feels cold. It feels bouncy. You explore how it feels. You can compare one blueberry to the other. So it's just like studying it, you know, just trying to strip away how intimidating a new food would look, or how intimidating a previously introduced food that is something that they didn't like at the first try. You just feel it. So there's no requirement of them wanting to eat it. But as you do sit there exploring with your child, you may notice them doing other stuff. Maybe they would try to smell it. Oh, I see you're smelling it. You can say, I think to me it smells sour. Does yours smell sour too? Does it smell? And then maybe he will say, oh, it smells like this and that, so and so. And that's when you may try suggesting it, putting it over their lips. Not put inside. You're not gonna say, okay, let's eat. That's so abrupt. Maybe anxious children or children who are very scared to try new things, they will suddenly close up. You will lose the momentum. So you just very slowly. I know it's a very tedious process, but this really works for children who are very fussy. So you just try pressing it on your lips. So it can be a little bit. You can play with your voice like, oh, it feels so squishy. Oh, let me try about this one. Oh, this one feels like a rock. It feels like a rock over my lips. I think I can bite it. Can I bite it? I'm gonna try to bite it. Oh, it's not blue inside. Why is it a blueberry if it's not blue inside? Then you're going to explore. Oh, you see that? If I squeeze it, some juice comes out. I think I want to taste that juice. You can even pretend to be repelled by the fruit. Ew, that's so sticky. Do you want to feel that? It's so sticky. You try squeezing it. It's so sticky. Do you feel? You know, you can do that with your child, you know, just to try to give them an experience that if they are alone, for example, if they're having a play date and they're alone and they're introduced to a new food, they will be able to replicate what you have introduced to them because they're also absorbing the process that you're introducing. So if you do it in such a way where you're just slowly dissecting the sensorial parts of it, how it feels, how cold it is, they will also be able to do that by themselves. Now when they you feel they're ready, if they're already putting it by their lips, you know, you just put one inside your mouth, and then you can say, hey, I didn't need to put that. I mean, I didn't need to use a fork with that. Do you remember what we eat with a fork? What kind of fruit we eat with a fork? Oh, it's sliced apples, or oh, it's sliced strawberries. Or actually, we usually don't eat with fork, right? We eat forks with, I mean, we eat forks. We don't eat forks. We we use forks to eat, for example, chicken proteins, or like steak, or like pasta, or we use chopsticks when we eat wonton, when we eat dumplings. But for fruits like this, we actually don't need it. You know, you have to follow your child's lead. Whatever they feel like talking about the fruit, that's what you talk about. Because I mean, in a way, it will make them feel welcome. They'll feel open. They will feel safe. They will feel heard. And then you can even suggest, if they are still apprehensive, you can suggest um, alternative ways of eating the fruit, like peeling it. Well, actually, you can peel it. Is it like an orange, or is it like grapes? If you've introduced grapes, do you think the juice will be sticky on your finger? Oh, there's a seed. You know, for example, if you have grapes, oh, or if it's a mango. Oh, actually, the seed in mango is actually quite big. It's not like the one in watermelon. Or you can even teach them that for some seeds, you are able to digest it, but for some seeds, you are not. So, for example, watermelon seeds, you can eat it. I mean, you can eat it, you're just going to poop it out. But for mango seeds, you cannot eat it. For right? So there are different kinds of food, and you can teach them how to spit it out, because some children might feel like, ew, what's this? And spit it, you know. And you have this environment at home where you can be open. If they do it, you can catch it. I mean, at least they don't do it in public, where someone might be spat on with a seed, I mean, with a grape seed. So this thing where they have this space and environment to explore, and for you to teach them proper manners when eating different kinds of food as well. So yeah, that's it. I think we still have time. I really want to show you this example because I saw this wonderful video of this therapist doing these steps. So let me just open it up for you, because
Make sure you
I
click
wasn't.
make sure you click the box to share the sound.
Oh, the song. Okay. Because I wasn't able to embed it inside the PowerPoint, because somehow it doesn't load. Okay. Here we go. I think I got it. Just turn the sound. Okay. It's really great. You will see how the child is reacting as well to, oh, there, share sound. There. See the screen? Okay.
Okay, I'm gonna smell it. It smells orangey.
Me too.
Mine feels cold.
My feels warm.
Yeah.
I'm gonna peel it first.
Ooh, who's faster?
I won.
Oh,
3.
I'm gonna
Mine goes lemony.
lemony. I'm gonna give mine I'm gonna put it to my lips. Mmm.
Like a cake bite.
Looks like a snake bite.
That how little a cake bite is.
Is a snake bite small?
That little.
Okay, let's just snake bite. Give a kiss.
Take it to your cheek.
Oh, to my cheek. Brr.
Bird.
Do a
moose bite.
A moose bite. That's a big bite. Should I do it?
You need lots of organs.
Oh, to do a moose bite?
To create.
Okay. Oh, thank you. Is that for me?
Did you see how the child wasn't prompted to go ahead, eat it? Or did you like it? Did you like how it tastes? Or the mom wasn't very, or the woman wasn't very pushy in letting the child put it inside the mouth. But since it's a process that they already have done before,